they get very rich off of exploiting. They're part of the problem. They're going to talk about how to fix it. United Group Health CEO, the healthcare system is flawed. Let's fix it. This is coming from the guy whose company denies more claims than any other health insurance company. They are the predators of the predators.
Hello and welcome. I will be playing a few video clips I obtained from other YouTube channels, and then I will briefly read an article that I found yesterday. And this video will pertain to Luigi Mangione. There are several updates I wanted to share with you. As always, I will leave the links to everything I share in the description below. If you would like to bypass my commentary, you are more than welcome to. I would like to say thank you to the new subscribers who came on board to my channel in support of Luigi Mangione. Again, I do not condone violence. I do not believe violence is the answer. However, I do perceive Luigi Mangione as a victim of the system, of the corrupt system of so-called healthcare we all live in the US. So violence is not the answer. I don't condone violence. However, Luigi Mangione is one of millions of people in the US living today with chronic pain, and the solutions to the chronic pain require a lifelong dependency on Big Pharma. It is a for-profit system for millions of people in the US who don't have any other resources, who don't have an alternative method to treating themselves medically, physically. When things go wrong with their bodies, we are all human. Things sometimes go wrong. Sometimes we are born with things going wrong. Some of us are born with disabilities. Some of us acquire disabilities later in life. And the US, as I have said in the previous video, the US is not even one of the top 20 healthiest countries in the world, despite our healthcare infrastructure. So I will be playing this video for you. And again, the links will be in the description below. Really interesting new updates pertaining to Luigi Mangione. Thank you for being here.
Kind of crazy, out there, just wackadoo kind of thing. I think they'd be putting it all over the place. They're going to say he wasn't well. He was not well. And then, of course, we could argue, well, why is that? Because he probably didn't get mental health care. But he was probably completely sane. I mean, I don't think anybody finds him to be irrational or insane. It doesn't seem that way to me.
No, he definitely is very, he's not only what I would consider very level-headed in his approach, but you and I have been discussing this, and we're going to play the clip now, Colin, if you want to cue it up, of exactly what the reaction was. They've been, it's funny, they're trying to, corporate media, we all know that corporate media was failing for a long time, long before this circumstance happened. So watching it in real time, and they're trying to portray this person as being a vigilante, a murderer. I mean, again, he did kill somebody. It is what it is, but
allegedly,
and he still has to have his day in court. And
absolutely,
if he gets it. And so ultimately what we need to remind people of is that he is becoming a folk hero. And this is going to be a two-parter, because we're going to show the coverage of what's really going on, and then we're going to show you some of the commentary that's coming from a very specific segment of the population who's trying to portray Mr. Brian Thompson as a hero. See, he's the real hero, Jen. He came from nothing, and he made it to exploit.
I'm so prepared for that conversation.
Every year. So,
I am so prepared for that conversation about him being a good person.
So we do have a clip of the inmates letting you know exactly what they think about what's going on with.
Okay, I haven't seen this.
So, Colin, if you would please.
So if you didn't hear that first part, the inmate said Luigi's conditions suck. His physical condition sucks. and then the inmate said, "Free Luigi." That's right. The inmate said, "Free Luigi."
Ashley, they're
the inmate said, "Luigi loves News Nation." I'm not sure if that's true, but that's allegedly what the inmate is saying.
going nuts in there right now watching this video on playback. This was just from a few hours ago, and here they are, 10 o'clock as promised. They said earlier today, tell Ashley Banfield that Luigi is watching at 10 o'clock. I mean, obviously, that's just a hard roast at this point because they're not near Luigi in any way, as confirmed by the Department of Corrections earlier today.
Can I ask you a favor? Can I just ask the guys, if they can hear me right now, to answer yes or no very loud? Does Luigi have television in his single cell?
I have never seen this in my life. I've never seen a news network talking to inmates through a window, through their cell windows. This is bizarre and simultaneously intriguing.
No.
Unreal. They said no, right? Obviously, we have a little bit of a delay, but they're getting they're bread, eggs, and coffee. He had the choice. The lunch was porcupine meatballs, potatoes, bread.
Really, that's the picture they
dinner, mac and cheese, pasta bean casserole.
Look at that picture they
stewed tomatoes with broccoli. So, guys, was dinner good? Yes or no? What did he say?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
It reminds me of the scene in Shawshank where there's like when initially he was beating, when the head guard Hadley was beating up on the tubby guy, and he was saying, if you think it'll get worse, he's like, yeah, you keep this place like a freaking prison. And so what do you expect in terms of the food that they're being served?
Right.
The crappiest food known to man.
Yeah. Look, they're making him into a hero. They're going to make him into a hero. But even if that wasn't being done, like in terms of the media and how they're portraying him, what's really interesting, and people, I don't know how many people really know this, but as somebody who's done criminal defense work, like there's honor amongst thieves. And there's honor amongst thieves, and there's codes. So he is somebody that would be treated very well by people that were incarcerated. Like he is somebody that would be protected. And I saw somebody ask about, we're not going to say, the Epsteined. Is he going to be Epsteined? I just do not understand how this can go to trial. I do not understand how they're going to be able to find 12 people in New York that don't hate insurance companies. I don't know 12 people that don't hate insurance companies. I don't know how you're going to find 12 people. Like, think about it. How are you going to find 12 people that aren't biased?
I get what she's saying. And I actually thought about this today before I even watched or heard this video. I was thinking, man, if this goes to trial, how are the jurors going to perceive all of the facts of what happened? And aren't the jurors themselves supposed to be people of Luigi's peers, like persons of his community? Or, I get it. It's extradited to New York because the death occurred in New York. But yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, when you consider, to me, as of December 13th, 2024, the court of public opinion is on Luigi Mangione's side. By and large, a majority of people online, much like in the Karen Read case, a majority of people online for the Karen Read case said that Karen Read is not guilty. She did not strike her boyfriend with her SUV. Someone else murdered him. And it seems to be a similar energy for Luigi Mangione, the court of public opinion, at least when it comes to people online, by and large, are saying that Luigi is a victim here. And yes, everyone's acknowledging that what he did, it was violent. However, again, there are millions of people in the U.S. right now suffering with chronic pain that the U.S. isn't doing anything about. It is a for-profit so-called healthcare system. So it's like people are identifying with Luigi Mangione, and that just tells you where a majority of people in the U.S. are right now. Health-wise, we are fed up with the system. We have all this infrastructure and all these resources, but it doesn't mean anything unless you have money, because it is a for-profit system. You see, this is what happens ultimately when people get fed up, and a lot of people are viewing Brian Thompson in a way, to summarize it, is like you reap what you sow. If you are going to be at the top of a greedy system, a system that is for profit rather than for people, you reap what you sow. And again, I say that, but believing and having the stance that violence is not the answer. And yet I understand. I understand where a lot of people are coming from. I understand where Luigi Mangione came from. It is not something I would ever do. However, at the same time, I see him as a victim here as well. And I see Brian Thompson's family as victims because they lost a loved one. His children will never be the same again without their father. You know, that's childhood trauma that they are never going to get over. So it's like, I see victims on both sides. However, you reap what you sow. Who is Luigi Mangione compared to Brian Thompson? Luigi Mangione is you and I, much like Karen Reed is you and I, and she is up against a corrupt system in Massachusetts. Luigi Mangione is you and I, and he was suffering for years, and he was up against a corrupt system. And he took matters into his own hands. And again, I don't condone it, but because he took matters into his own hands, because he wanted to send a message, the community, the nationwide online community in the US responded. And overall, people are saying, we hear you, dude. We don't like the system either. And we're not that sad about Brian Thompson, because the system is broken, and it is by design that it is broken, because again, it is for profit.
That's a good point.
I don't see how he can get it. And I also don't see how they're going to want the chaos going out. So as far as what happens to him inside, yes, I have concerns, because I actually didn't think he was going to be ever brought in alive, because I can't see how they want that kind of coverage.
Well, what you have to remember, and guys, we have over 700 people watching, but only 380 of you have hit that like button. Remember to smash that like button, get this out to as many people as possible. Remember, we are filling in Jordan Chariton, Status Coup News, Colin Tooley, Behind the Scenes. I am Peter Hager. This is Jen Perlman, and we do Generational Change on YouTube. Very important that you guys understand why this is so significant right now. Now, keep in mind, it would be one thing if they were able to get him and claim that, oh, it was a shootout, he wasn't going to go down, and we had to do what we had to do.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, you have been of the thought that it's almost assured that he probably meant to get caught. That at this point, it
I don't
almost
know.
seems like he intended to eventually get caught. Now, whatever the reasoning is, he did flee and he got pretty far, but maybe he decided that this is the best way to expose this story, to not allow it to die. Because the one thing that they're usually pretty good about, remember, corporate media wanted no part of covering this story. They do not want to cover this, and the only light that they want to cover it in is a very negative light. They want to portray Mr. Thompson as the martyr and Mr. Mangione as the murderer. That is their job. It is never about context. And what you're seeing here with the inmates is that they do see him as a folk hero. So any potential, monkey business that may be going on behind those walls, I have a feeling that virtually every inmate there is keeping an eye on Luigi to make sure that nothing happens to him. Like you said, honor among thieves. I do think that that's something that people have to think about.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, there is that sort of honor among thieves. It has to do with who your victim is at the end of the day. Like people that hurt children, they are not safe in prison. People that rapists are also not, don't get particularly respected by other inmates. But yeah, this guy would definitely get a lot of respect. I find the entire thing, and I am not some sort of, wily conspiracy theorist, but I find it very strange that someone that pulled off what he pulled off, how he pulled off, and then gets called sitting in McDonald's with all this stuff still on him from a few days earlier. And meanwhile, this is somebody that has means. I find that just very strange with his manifesto and everything just on him, and he's just sitting in a McDonald's, which, by the way, if he had meant to get caught, then why like that? Then what does it have to do with that woman who called up? I mean, I don't know. I just think it's very strange. And, we'll find out. But yeah, they're turning this guy into a folk hero.
So I will, again, leave the link in the description below, but I'm going to play another segment from this video. But first, I want to show you another one as a caveat to what she's saying, that it didn't quite make sense to me either, that he would just be out in the open. But the only thing that makes sense is that he wanted to get caught. McDonald's has cameras. Lots of people go to McDonald's. So yeah, McDonald's is like a mainstream food chain, right? That a lot of people in the US are familiar with, and all around the world too. McDonald's is in plenty of other countries as well. I'm just saying, McDonald's is a mainstream food chain. So to me, it doesn't appear as though Luigi was attempting to hide if he was eating at McDonald's, So anyway, I will show you this next clip from a different YouTube channel.
Now, there are some things about this story that don't make sense to me, and you guys can let me know how you feel about it. Feel free. How is it that they find this guy just chilling at McDonald's with the book bag, with a manifesto, with the weapon, with a fake ID, just in broad daylight? The guy that they were looking for 5 days, just all of a sudden is right out there in the open at McDonald's with everything that the police would need to link him to the crime. So either he wanted to get caught, which I would question that as well, because if he wanted to get caught, then why did he flee the scene? Or is this really the person? And I think that's the question that some of you guys ask. Is this a person? Is he being set up? Some people are mentioning MK Ultra. Like, what is this really about? James Lee brought up some things that I thought were pretty interesting about his background. Not only that, check this out. Luigi is jacked. Like, how many of you saw this picture? I know some of the girls, some of the women in the chat, I know. Some of the men too. I know some of you in the chat. I saw you making eyes. I can't see your faces, but, I know what's happening. I saw you guys making eyes and stuff. And y'all were like, damn, I know it. Listen to what James Lee said.
So they caught the guy. The New York Times reported that Luigi Mangione was just sitting there at a McDonald's with the gun that he supposedly used to pew-pew the CEO. He was carrying a fake ID, and he was carrying a manifesto that supposedly said, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." A little too on the nose, I have to say. There's just so much more to the story that's so peculiar. We have to get into it. First off, he comes from extraordinary wealth, one of the richest families in Maryland. It says Luigi Mangione, 26, comes from a powerful Maryland family centered around the late patriarch Nicholas Mangione, a first-generation American who built a real estate empire in that state that included country clubs and media. The family also owns a chain of nursing homes called Lorien Health Services. Reviews are, shall we say, not so great. Now, Luigi happened to volunteer there when he was in high school, which possibly could have been his first awakening into realizing just how rigged the healthcare system is in the United States. Also, it looks like he had some sort of back surgery at some point. Friends that went to school with him said what kept coming up was this back surgery that, quote, changed everything for him, and he went absolutely crazy.
Just want to pause something. Did everybody hear that part? The back surgery. If you ever knew anyone that had back surgery, that is something that is incredibly painful. And it doesn't really leave you. Like, when you have back surgery, it's not like, after that, you just wake up and you don't have any back issues. That's something that does kind of stay with you. Let's continue here.
Crazy because he was valedictorian at his high school, at the prestigious Gilman School, an all-boys prep school that is known as one of Baltimore's toniest private schools. I had to look up what that meant. Apparently it means fashionable among wealthy or stylish people. And then he would go on to graduate from the University of Pennsylvania with both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in computer science, learning about all kinds of stuff like AI, obviously a super smart guy, not a guy you would say was at his wit's end. Apparently also had a PhD. Wink, wink. Now, earlier this year, he left an Amazon review of the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski's book, Industrial Society and Its Future. He writes, when all other forms of communications fail, violence is necessary to survive. He was very active on social media. He was not shy about voicing his criticisms of the system, capitalism, corporate greed, psychology, philosophy, all kinds of stuff that he talked about. By the way, this account has now been taken down. Here's where things get odd. He stopped posting on social media altogether in June. This was his last post. It was a retweet of an Andrew Huberman podcast with Jonathan Haidt about smartphones and mental health, which leads me to believe that Luigi has been planning this for the last 6 months. CNN reported that posts addressed to the X account suggest that some of Mangione's friends had been trying to get in touch with him since earlier this year. In July, one user tweeted at Mangione, quote, "I haven't heard from you in months," urging him to respond to his wedding invitation. 3 months later, another user posted, "Hey, are you okay? Nobody's heard from you in months, and apparently your family is looking for you." So if nobody could find him, how did he get caught?
That is a good question. Good question, James. If nobody could find him, how did he get caught? When people don't want to be found, they will not be found.
Just sitting at a McDonald's, according to the police chief. Some people online are positing that this is just all too perfect, and they doubt whether this is even the guy. Possible, but I think Luigi wanted to be found. There was a YouTube video that went live shortly after he was arrested that was posted to an account under his name that said, "If you see this, I'm already under arrest," with a countdown clock. And if this goes to trial, Luigi is going to have a huge platform to espouse to the entire world to explain why he did what he did.
And that YouTube video is gone. So if you look for it now, you won't be able to find it.
Perhaps worse for United Healthcare, they're going to be subject to all kinds of discovery where more dirty laundry is going to be aired out about their scummy business practices that now the public is going to have even more knowledge of. Oh, and last thing, this is something pretty interesting. When I started screenshotting his account this morning, he was following 77 people. Later on, when I went back to his account again, I noticed that his following count dropped. So unless he's actively using Twitter/X right now, that means that people that he used to follow have now gone in and actively blocked him. Probably, maybe.
People piece the fuck out.
Maybe because they don't want to be associated with this guy. Now, one of the most prominent people who I found that unfollowed Luigi is Ryan Holiday. He is the author of this New York Times bestselling book called The Obstacle is the Way, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph. And an excerpt from the foreword of this book reads, quote, This will be a book of ruthless pragmatism and stories from history that illustrate the arts of relentless persistence and infatigable ingenuity. It teaches you how to get unstuck, unfucked, and unleashed. How to turn many negative situations we encounter in our lives into positive ones, or at least to snatch whatever benefit we can from them, to steal good fortune from misfortune. There's a lot we could take away from this. So let me know what your thoughts are. By the way, last thing, that McDonald's is getting ripped to shreds.
Yeah, I can imagine. So one thing I do want to add, the YouTube video, which he was talking about here, somebody else has already made claims to that. So again, that's the thing with YouTube. We don't really know if he created that or not. But at the time we weren't sure. But like I said, this situation to me is just very suspect. And Ron Baclone had some great, questions here. He said, Luigi Mangione. So y'all want us to believe a dude who went to Penn, who head to the Midwest instead of the Canadian border. Also, after 5 days, the farthest he got was Altoona? Sorry, other than a light resemblance in an unconfirmed photo, none of this adds up. I agree with Ron Baclone. Like, this is very confusing to me. Make sure you answer the poll question that I have there, guys. I just don't, it just seems too put together. Like, this guy has been gone for 5 days and he's just sitting right here at McDonald's out in the open and he has all the evidence that we need. It just felt weird to me, unless you want to be found. And then there's something else that happened, and I really want to pick your brain about this one, folks. Martha shared this on Twitter. It says, first picture of CEO murderer suspect Luigi Mangione inside prison holding cell shortly after his arrest. Now, I need to ask you guys some questions. And this is for all my peeps in the chat. When is the last time you saw a picture of someone in their holding cell? I'm not talking about the mugshot. The holding cell. Why is there a picture of him in the holding cell? It's just bizarre. We didn't see a picture of Epstein in a holding cell. We saw mugshots. We didn't see a picture of Diddy in a holding cell. Usually you just see a mugshot. So why are they showing pictures of Luigi in a holding cell? Why?
Really good points by Sabby. And again, the link will be in the description below. I was wondering if maybe it's just the police department he was taken to in Altoona. I don't know if this photo is from the Pennsylvania Police Department or the New York Police Department. I'm not sure, but Sabby has a point that usually we see mugshots. We don't usually see suspects in a holding cell. Very peculiar, I agree. But I just want to say, as a side note, I will be Sabrina Salvati. If you don't know, she has her own YouTube channel, and obviously, and I will be helping her and several others this Sunday, December 15th, with outreach work. And we meet up every couple months, sometimes more frequently, but we are providing food and toys to 20 families in the Boston area, Boston, Massachusetts. And I will be participating and assisting with that outreach. And I mentioned outreach in my previous video. It is a way to lessen the suffering of those who are directly impacted by corrupt and greedy systems like the U.S. healthcare, like corporate America, like the pyramidal system we all live in. The ones who suffer the most are the working class and the poor. And to me, participating in outreach is a positive way of making a difference. You are assisting those who need the most help. And, it would be nice if the CEOs of these organizations, of these pyramidal systems, would go out on the street and do the things that Sabby and I do, but they are, again, in their palaces at the top of the pyramids. These organizations don't give a damn about the communities they directly impact because of their greed. So I do the footwork, I go out and I help when I can. And again, I hope that you guys listening and watching will do some of your own outreach work. If there's a way that you can help your community or neighboring communities who need the help, if there's a way you can help, you can be part of the positive solution to the corruption. Anyway, let's go back to the previous video.
I would just like to put some ideas out there for people to sort of ponder, right? Like, what is our concept of violence? Like, what do we consider violence, and what we've been sort of brainwashed, and how a narrative has allowed us to believe that certain things are violent and certain things are not violent, when in fact, things like austerity is violence. Denying people access to healthcare, denying people healthcare, denying women reproductive freedom, that's violence. That's the equivalent of somebody standing with a boot on your neck. And that is violence towards us. And it bothers me immensely when I hear people saying things about this CEO, like, this was in cold blood. Well, was it? Was it? If there was a man standing on the street wielding a knife and walking around and stabbing people, and someone like Luigi came up and killed him, and that forced him to stop killing all those other people, and given what we just saw in the Daniel Penny case, I'd say that we tend to believe that vigilante justice is sound when it's in the name of protecting people. So what?
And in a past video, I brought up how corruption is itself violence. To be a corrupt, powerful institution is to be part of a violent and abusive institution. The things that Karen Read has dealt with in the state of Massachusetts, it's violence. Her being incarcerated for something she did not do, that is violence. And again, the state of Massachusetts using resources in order to prosecute her, despite the science and the evidence proving that Karen Read did not hurt John O'Keefe. She did not kill John O'Keefe. The state of Massachusetts doesn't care. The Norfolk County doesn't care. They want to prosecute Karen Read for this crime because they just want it to go away. They don't want the real culprits, which again, the court of public opinion believes is actually law enforcement, members of law enforcement who were inside 34 Fairview. The Norfolk County DA's office doesn't care about prosecuting the right people. They want to put this on Karen Read so they don't have to deal with exposing law enforcement in this situation as being corrupt and violent and abusive. So I agree with what she is saying, that violence encompasses a lot of things, and ultimately it causes suffering, it causes injustice, right? So for Luigi Mangione to be described as a violent person, I agree with her. It is a violent act in and of itself. It is, yes, it meets the definition of violence. Shooting someone is a violent act, but what is it in response to? Like I mentioned in a past video, long time ago, I couldn't even tell you what the video was about, but I expressed that if you are defending yourself, if you need to defend yourself, that's not violence. If you have to choose between your life and your attacker, you choose your life. If you have to choose between the life of your family or your children or your friends or your neighbor over an assassin, over an attacker, then you do that. You do what you need to do to survive. That is your right as a human being, to defend yourself and to protect your life and the lives of your loved ones. Absolutely. So what is Luigi Mangione doing when he allegedly commits this crime against a CEO? Is he defending himself? Is he an attacker? Or is he responding to a system that exploits and victimizes people every single day? You know, it's something to think about. Again, I am not condoning it. I don't think we should be out there shooting people. I don't think we should be out there taking matters into our own hands like this. However, it's a different situation when you consider the victim. It's a different situation when you consider that actually the U.S. healthcare is a violent system. It exploits the poor, it exploits the working class, and unless you're wealthy in this country, you are suffering. And why is that? Why is it that the wealthy in this country are okay, but the working class and the poor are struggling? Why is that? As if the government doesn't know, as if Big Pharma doesn't know, as if all these corporations don't know that life is really hard for the working class and the poor in this country. And look at Luigi Mangione. He comes from wealth, and even he, as a wealthy person, was subjected to suffering because of the healthcare system we all live in, the for-profit healthcare system. What if they didn't do to his back what they could have done? What if Luigi Mangione could be living a far better life, a far better quality of life? But because of Big Pharma's procedures, which again are for-profit procedures, Luigi Mangione was destined to have a life of suffering, a life in which he was dependent on medication and procedure after procedure after procedure. Because again, Big Pharma doesn't give a damn about you or me or Luigi Mangione. Big Pharma just wants to make money. And they actually don't care if you're dependent on them for the rest of your life. They want you to be dependent on them for the rest of their life. They are happy to give you prescriptions for medication for the rest of your life. That is Big Pharma, right? So again, is Luigi Mangione violent, or is he responding to violence? And this article I will read briefly for you. And again, I will leave the link in the description below if you would like to read it without my commentary. It's titled, Luigi Mangione's back pain was so intense that he couldn't be physically intimate with anyone, former landlord says. And it was published 3 days ago, December 10th, 2024. The article begins, United Healthcare CEO, murder suspect Luigi Mangione, was suffering terrible back pain to the point where it was not possible for him to have sex with anyone or date, his former landlord said. R.J. Martin, who owns the, quote, co-living, end quote, space in Hawaii, where Mangione lived for 6 months, said the murder suspect revealed to him that he was in constant pain over a pinched nerve and, quote, misaligned spine, end quote, the New York Times reported. Quote, he knew that dating and being physically intimate with his back condition wasn't possible, end quote, Martin told the outlet. Here's a photo of Mangione, and this photo has gone viral online because people can't get over his physique, and I get it. He's physically healthy, physically fit, a man in his youth trying to live his life, and unfortunately you wouldn't know it, but he's physically fit, but he is suffering because of his back. Like, like, what a terrible circumstance to be in, to be young, to be youthful, to be in a body that is supposed to be in the best shape it will ever be in your life, and yet you can't live it up. You can't enjoy your life because you are suffering with chronic back pain to the extent that you can't be physically intimate. Like, I feel for him. It's a miserable life to have. Continuing with the article, Luigi Mangione couldn't be, quote, physically intimate, quote, end quote, with anyone due to his back problems, his ex-landlord says. Luigi Mangione's Facebook. So this photo was from Luigi Mangione's Facebook. Continuing, quote, I remember him telling me that, and my heart just breaks, end quote. Martin met Mangione in 2022 when the University of Pennsylvania grad interviewed to be among the first dozen people to rent out Surf Break's first Honolulu living space for about $2,000 a month. I wonder why the article chose to list the rent. Interesting. Okay. The Surf Break boss described Mangione as a smart, accomplished, and upbeat engineer, saying he didn't even have to think twice before accepting his application. Quote, our mission statement is that we're a community of givers and that we leave things better than we found them, end quote, Martin said. And just pulling away from the article, that is the kind of person I am. I leave things better than I found them. Oh my gosh, like when I use public restrooms, I'm the one that comes in there with gloves and alcohol wipes, and like I leave it better than I found it, because 9 times out of 10, when I'm using a public restroom, the person before me left it in shambles or left it in a disgusting condition. You know, like people want to talk about things being normal, right? Like a mainstream way of life. But if you, all you have to do is go to a public restroom to know that a lot of people don't give a damn about other people. They leave their biohazards everywhere when they're using a public restroom. They don't care about the next person who has to use that restroom. So I'm just using that as an example. Like, leave shit better than you found it, people. Think about the next person that has to use the thing you just used, right? Like, I really wish people in the US were a little more selfless, you know? But so often I am both disappointed and not surprised, especially when it comes to public restrooms. Like, oh my gosh, some people are so selfish that they will leave their biohazards, their own biohazard, all over a toilet seat. When in fact, you should be responsible of your own biohazard. You should not be leaving your biohazard for anyone else to clean up, you know? And that's just one example. That's just one gripe I have with living in the US. So many selfish people here. But anyway, continuing. Yes, leave things better than you found them. Okay. If there's any message you get from this video, let that be the message. Okay. Continuing. Quote, we look for people who are looking to give back, and he fit the bill. He was an ideal member for us, end quote. It was during his 6th-month stay in the Honolulu space that Mangione allegedly opened up to Martin, who became a friend, about his back issues. And here is a photo from Mangione's Twitter/X account. And the words beneath the photo read, Luigi Mangione suffered from a, quote, misaligned spine, end quote, and pinched nerve. And again, it's from Luigi Mangione's X account. So right here is his spine. It's an X-ray. And you can see, like, just, I feel for him. you know, the spine is one of those things, like, if you have a good back, you don't, and you, if you have a good back and it's working properly, it's working how it's supposed to, it's like you don't really know how important it is to have a good back until you don't have a good back. And I know that personally when I suffered a sprained muscle in my lower back. I pulled a muscle somehow earlier this year, and I was in excruciating pain. And it wasn't even a bone, it wasn't a vertebrae, it was muscle. Okay, I had done something terrible to the muscles in my lower back, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't sit down to use the restroom. You know, the only relief I had was with a chiropractor. I went to the hospital and I explained what was going on to my lower back and how it happened. I was picking up something heavy, and the hospital said, well, we can give you pain meds, but that's about it. That's about all we can give you. And there was like no relief until I went to a chiropractor. I did not take the pain meds. But I went to a chiropractor, and for a few days I had been suffering. But when I went to the chiropractor, I felt immediate relief. I was able to sit down. I was able to sit down again to use the restroom. Like, guys, like that's when I really learned for myself that when a back is injured, or when a back is not operating the way it's supposed to or the way it should, it impacts the rest of your body. Like, we are all at the mercy of our backs, whether we realize it or not. And when you have a bad back, and look at Mangione's back, like I know that just spraining a muscle on my lower back made life miserable for me. It was a pain that I had never experienced before. And you know, to me, it was akin to childbirth. I've experienced natural childbirth pain. I did not have any medication when I gave birth to my son. So I know real childbirth pain. And when I sprained my lower back muscle, it was akin to that of childbirth. It was excruciating. So I'm just saying, and that was just muscle. It was not bone. It was not a vertebrae. It was muscle, and it healed over time. And again, the chiropractor was such a great help, and the hospital was no help whatsoever. So for Mangione to have relied on hospitals to assist him with his back, I know firsthand that they probably didn't do as much for him as natural remedies could have. I'm just saying, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert, but in my experience with hospitals, with big pharma, they don't do a damn thing for you. Like, you actually have to go to chiropractors and naturopaths and homeopaths to get real help, to get real relief that isn't going to leave you dependent on medication. When the hospital wants to give you a pill, a chiropractor wants to actually help you and benefit and help you benefit from the treatment for the long term, so that you're not dependent on going to the chiropractor, so that you're not dependent on pain meds. But again, I say that also understanding that some people have had terrible experiences with chiropractors. I get it. I have never had it. Knock on wood. Myself and my son, we have both gone to chiropractors, and it has been a positive experience, thankfully. All that to say that I know what a sprained back muscle feels like. I know how debilitating it can be. I was in tears I was in tears with how much pain it was. And I was even asking the question, why me? Like, it was so painful. So I can only imagine what someone with Luigi Mangione's back has to live with every day. A sprained muscle in your lower back, it will heal. It will heal over time. But something as permanent as a spinal disfigurement, displacement, your life is never the same. Your life is never going to be the same. I really sympathize with him. I sympathize with anyone living with chronic pain, whether it's the back or any other part of the body. No one should have to live like that. No one should have to live with pain every day. And again, with all the resources we have in the US, with the infrastructure that we have, to me, there's no excuse for it. Like, we have the technology, we have the resources, but because it's for profit, so many people do not benefit from the resources or from the technology or from the infrastructure. Continuing with the article, quote, his spine was kind of misaligned, end quote, Martin recalled. Quote, he said his lower vertebrae were almost like a half-inch off, and I think it pinched a nerve, end quote. A former high school classmate told the New York Times that Mangione had lost touch with his family after undergoing back surgery. And that is a mugshot of Mangione. The article continues. Mangione had 5 books involving chronic back pain on his reading list on his Goodreads account. Speculations have swirled that Mangione's chronic back pain was connected to United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's murder, given his role overseeing America's largest private insurer. Mangione was arrested with a manifesto in which he accused health insurance companies of putting corporate greed above the well-being of their clients. And where's the lie? I'm going to read that last sentence again. In which he accused health insurance companies of putting corporate greed above the well-being of their clients. And you know damn well that all of these other health insurance companies, besides United Healthcare, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you know damn well they are all following closely with this case, because they all are doing the same damn thing that United Healthcare does. They are all doing the same damn thing. They are all putting profits before people. Anyway, that was the end of the article. Again, as always, I will leave the links in the description below. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for watching.
If you actually want things to change in this country, guess what it's going to take? Protests and strikes. That's a fact. That's just a fact. Protests, strikes, that's what it's going to take to change this freaking country. Just showing up in the voting booth, ain't going to do it. Just ain't going to do it. That's not going to do it alone. And, talking about Twitter beefs 24/7, also not going to do it. Also not going to do it. So we're covering the stuff that is essential, and the corporate media ignores this stuff. Why? Because their advertisers and their owners don't want them to. Comcast doesn't want MSNBC covering a potential strike. Neither does CNN and Time Warner. Neither does Fox News and Rupert Murdoch's wet dream.